Would you ever quit your day job to pursue the world of professional poker? It certainly sounds like a risky gamble, but there's more to the game than luck. It requires skill, experience, and a deep understanding of people's psyche. Maria Konnikova wanted to test out if she, with a background in psychology but no experience playing cards, could become a successful professional poker player. Konnikova is a journalist and author of the new book, The Biggest Bluff: How I Learned to Pay Attention, Master Myself, and Win. She graduated with a dual degree from Harvard University and has a PhD in psychology from Columbia University. To get started on this journey, Konnikova enlisted poker legend Eric Seidel to be her mentor. He's been playing poker for more than 3 decades and has won more than $37 million through the game.
He was instrumental in my journey progressing the way it did and it being successful. And yet he could have said no. And I'm so lucky that he agreed to work with me. And so he needed to teach me from the ground up. So I began by reading books and just trying to talk through the strategy with him, trying to talk through things and figure out, well, how do I start from the beginning? What are the fundamental things I need to do? Because he was very clear that when I started playing, I would be playing for real money because people don't play seriously if they're playing with pretend money.
Aside from becoming familiar with the game, one apprehension Konnikova had early on was her lack of math background. Many people often assume that in order to be great at poker, you have to be a math whiz. But there's much more than math involved.
The math is easy enough that a 6th grader could do it. And that really just made me feel a lot better. As long as you can add and subtract and multiply and divide, you'll be fine. Because really all you need is to be able to do these fundamental calculations about pot odds. Do I have the right price to call? How often do I need to do this in order to make enough money? So those types of calculations are something that you can actually do even if you're someone like me with no talent or background in math. I think that you can actually get very good if you're just a math person, but you can also get very good if your strength is psychology, which is my strength. I think you need to learn where your strength lies and use that. And yes, you'll need a little bit of the other. The math people need a little psychology. The psychology people like me need a little math.
Once Konnikova studied the math, the psychology, and the other fundamentals of the game, she was ready to start playing. She began commuting from New York City to cafes in New Jersey where it's legal to gamble online. While competing over the internet has its cons, it allows you to build experience fast.
You can play hundreds and thousands of hands. You can get the experience that it used to take people, a year to get. You can get it in a week. And that's huge because that just gives you a sense of how different situations feel like. And that's how I started learning. And I had to start learning how to win online before I was ever allowed to go to Vegas and set foot in a real casino.
In a typical casino, you'll find many games that are pure luck. From slots to the roulette wheel, these wins are solely based on chance. But poker is not one of those games. Konnikova says it's a balance between luck of the draw and strategy. In the short term, you may get unlucky, but if you've mastered your skill, you'll come out on top in the long run.
It's a game of incomplete information because all I know are my cards and then your reactions and how you're playing, but I don't actually know what cards you have. I don't know what cards are coming. And so I need to make good decisions, but there's still that element of chance. There's still that deck out there, and that's incredibly important, and that's something that I need to be aware of. I need to know that I can make a really good decision and still lose because probabilities only get you so far, and you're only a favorite to win some amount of the time, but it's never 100%. And it can't be because it's a game of incomplete information.
So, what's Konnikova's game of choice within poker? No Limit Texas Hold'em. Of course.
One of the reasons that I chose No Limit Hold'em was because John von Neumann, who was the founder of game theory, that's the game he played. And he'd looked at a lot of different variants of poker. And he decided that this particular one was the best simulation of human decision making because the amount of unknown information was perfect to model what you find in life on a regular basis. So in No Limit Hold'em, there are two hole cards. And the hole cards are the cards that you're dealt that only you can see. And he said that's actually the right amount of unknown. And then there are 5 cards that everyone sees in common. Now, in other variants of poker, sometimes you have 5 cards that no one else sees. And he said that's much more like gambling because there's too much unknown information. And so the skill is taken out of it.
Konnikova specifically likes No Limit Texas Hold'em because of its high-stakes nature. You can choose to risk it all if you believe in your odds. And that's what some of the most successful people do in poker and in life.
These days, if you're sitting at a table, you're just as likely to be sitting next to someone with a PhD in statistics as you are next to, someone from the old school style of swagger. And I also think that a lot of people don't understand that poker is a skill game. They think, oh, it's gambling and I don't like gambling. But if you explain, actually, it's much more like chess in a lot of ways than like blackjack, then maybe they would suddenly be interested.
If you do choose to learn the game, no matter how much you've prepared, Konnikova says there's a certain level of nerves involved. She remembers the first time she played in person at the World Series of Poker.
The first day, I was just so overwhelmed because there were so many people there. I don't think I understood just how much energy there would be there because poker is a game of skill, but there is that element of luck. And so everyone thinks that, well, maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe this is my lucky break. Maybe this is my lucky day. Maybe I can actually win. And when you walk into this convention hall at the Rio Hotel and Casino, which is where the World Series has been held for the last number of years, you feel that hope. You feel that energy.
Now, more than 3 years into playing the game, Konnikova is officially a professional poker player and has amassed more than $300,000 in winnings. Over the years, she's learned how to block out the white noise and side comments. Oddly enough, one of the ways she does this is by wearing noise-canceling headphones.
When I wear those headphones, I don't necessarily even turn them on because I don't want to miss anything and I want to make sure that I'm paying attention. But what that allows me to do is selectively filter out the noise, the stuff that's going to get to me, the idiots who are trying to get under my skin, the people who are making comments that I don't want to respond to. It's a very, very powerful weapon for me because at the beginning, I'd get into a lot of situations where I started playing poorly, and I'd play poorly because I'd get upset, I'd get emotional, and that's bad for decision making. That's one of the things you really need to avoid.
It's true that Konnikova is one of the few women at the top of the poker world. Just 3% of elite poker players are female. Poker is still a male-dominated game, and this disparity traces back to its roots.
Originally, Texas Hold'em was Texas Hold'em. It was played in Texas. People had guns. This was the Wild West. That's when it started. Then there was a lot of swagger and machismo, and I think women didn't feel welcome, with good reason. They weren't welcome. And I think because of that historical origin of the game, a lot of women have felt intimidated, have felt like even today they wouldn't be welcome at the tables. And people oftentimes don't realize how much the game has evolved.
Konnikova initially set off on this adventure to discover the parallels between life and poker and write about her findings. But 3 years later, she still truly enjoys playing the game. So, what does the future hold?
If the last few months have taught us anything, it's that we really can't plan a lot in advance because the world can change drastically on you with no warning whatsoever. So right now, I was actually supposed to be in Las Vegas playing the real World Series. The World Series of Poker was happening right now in June and July, and obviously that's no longer possible. And so I made plans to go for a few weeks to New Jersey and play some of the online bracelets because I'm not quite ready to leave the game yet. I still think it has a lot to teach me. As I learned poker, as I became better, as I learned the game on a deeper level, I found myself making better decisions and growing as a person outside of poker. And I was still feeling that when COVID hit and live poker stopped. And so while I feel the game still has something to give me, I plan to keep playing. That said, I also plan to keep writing. I'm a writer first and foremost, and luckily the two things are quite compatible.
To find out more about Maria Konnikova, visit viewpointsradio.org. You can also check out her new book, The Biggest Bluff, How I Learned to Pay Attention, Master Myself, and Win, on Amazon.com, or you can request the title to be stocked at your local bookstore. If you feel like you may have a gambling problem, visit the National Council on Problem Gambling to get help. The website is ncpgambling.org. For more behind the scenes, you can find Viewpoints Radio on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
Many people started realizing that there were also families and children experiencing homelessness.
The homeless epidemic in the U.S. Then,
we made commitments to be on call 24 hours a day. We worked 18, 20-hour days, 7 days a week, no vacations.
The all-consuming world of cults. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows. And find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.